Where did this whole mindset, these 9 tenets, like what's the inspiration behind all of this?
Yeah, I think I alluded to this earlier. My real why in the world is my kids couldn't breathe. They were allergic to everything, dust, dogs, food, you name it. They would go into this anaphylactic shock. They couldn't breathe. They were taking ambulance trips to the hospital. We had to use EpiPens. Doctors kept giving the same bullshit solutions.
Both of them? Both of them. And where were you living when this is happening? Same place you are right now?
No, not same place, in the city. We were living in the city.
Okay.
Yeah, right in the middle of the city. And it was more EpiPen, more Benadryl, more allergy shots. Same thing kept happening. And what we realized is, we have the extreme issues where they would have to go to the hospital, but if you really paid attention, they hardly ever could just take a deep breath. They were always having issues breathing. They always had these bags around their eyes. You don't really notice it because this is your everyday, right? And, one day I'm like, you know what, enough is enough. I'm not giving that to them anymore. You couldn't go anywhere. I mean, they were allergic to our own dog. They might go to a friend's house, and you got to have like your whole rescue kit, emergency plan, exit strategy. You got to tell everybody around, here's what you got to do. I'm like, man, you can't raise your kids like that. Like, this is your job as a dad to figure this out. And so with enough research, I came upon this like ancestral living principle, that these forces that enabled us to be healthy, these robust, strong, healthy individuals since the beginning of time. Maybe we still need these things, right? Which are sleep, eat, move, shield, connect, cold, sun, fight, and bond. But primarily I said, you know what? Let's start with eat. What if what we're feeding them, what if what I'm feeding them is creating these issues? And so we just got rid of all the processed foods. It was like overnight. Liver Queen did it. She threw away. I couldn't believe it either because I like to eat a lot of ice cream. At the time I was like, I would do a whole container, and I couldn't believe it. I'm like, well, hold on.
Time out.
I'm never going to do that again. And so she got rid of absolutely everything. And so through that transition, she would put chiefly liver and bone marrow and egg yolks in front of them. You think they want to eat that?
Of course not. Especially raw, forget it.
They wouldn't touch it. Yeah. They wouldn't touch it. And she would make bone soups. They wouldn't touch it. After 3 or 4 days of not eating, they started eating it. They were hungry. And then they wanted more of it. And then immediately, we saw the lights come on. And we saw this personality, this vibrancy that we had never seen before in them. It's like, how dulled down were they? And we didn't know this until going through this process. And I'm like, holy shit, maybe this eat ancestrally works. And so I had read this in a book in Sally Fallon's Nourishing Traditions. There's a couple of other books that we had read at that time, but that was a landmark book for us. And then we started to think, okay, from first principle thinking, what else are we missing? Our kids are going from the house to a car to another building, right? And they're not getting outside. And when they're outside, we're putting sunblock on them. How much sun are they getting? Did we evolve with sun? There's so many of these things, first principle thing. I'm like, okay, what did we get right? What did we get wrong? How can we expand upon this? And so we started to go and visit with these tribes in the Amazon, in Africa, in Mongolia, to study their ways, to see if we can validate the 9 ancestral tenets, maybe expand upon the 9 ancestral tenets. So when we figured this out for our kids, I thought, okay, what kind of piece of shit doesn't share this with the world?
Yeah.
So that's when I'm like, okay, this is what we're going to do. From now on, every company is going to be about teaching the 9 ancestral tenets. And so really it just took off from there.
And it killed all the grass-fed, grass-finished, from the bone marrow to the I do all of it. I get all frozen and shipped.
You get it from him, from his company?
No, the Heart and Soil, 100%. That's what I'm going to talk about sponsorship.
Oh, you get all this?
I 100%. We're living in like you said, grass-fed, the bone marrow. I've tried the raw, but so I just by itself, I put on top of the steak. I eat, raw honey, the cheese, fruits, vegetables. I'm sorry, barely any vegetable. Are you a vegetable?
You like vegetables? Get down.
You could get down on, but the bread is gone. And I'm telling you right now, mind, body, everything else is a completely different attitude. Now, when I eat like shit, even a little bit, I feel it.
Yeah.
Like I want to pass out. If I eat like bread and gluten, I'm dead serious. After lunch with that, I want to take a nap. So it's 100%. I mean, like I said, Sean O'Malley said the same thing. People might be like, oh, well, how can you believe now? That shit works. It really, really works. Getting the sun and getting the right food in you, night and day.
There's just maybe hundreds of thousands of anecdotes about this. I mean, if you just go on Amazon and look at some reviews about people that have turned to this lifestyle, again, I just want to remind everybody that most people go to a job they hate. They come home to a life that they don't love. They sedate themselves and distract themselves to call it a day, to call it a week. It's like there's a better life to live, and most of these things are free to do. 8 of them are free to do, accessible to everybody, and even the food aspect of this, I think it's a wash. or you can possibly save money on food. Nobody says you got to get a steak. You can go get, ground beef.
Yeah.
When I started this, the organs cost like $2. Most butchers were giving the organs away.
100%.
Yeah, we're giving the organs away. And so, I mean, now the organs actually are
they're expensive. They're expensive
money.
as hell. Yeah.
But that's how the whole thing started. And, there's a lot of vegans and vegetarians that come and they're like, hey, I think a lot of what you're saying is cool. But this whole other thing, I got a problem with. I'm like, cool, you know what? There's 8 other ancestral tenets for you, right? Focus on those other 8. And if those other 8 don't get you leading a better kick-ass life, then you can talk about just introducing liver. Mm-hmm. If that doesn't get you better, just think about that. And one other thing I want to point out, my takeaway when, by the way, Joe Rogan, and Derek talked about me for like 30 minutes. And someone said, how'd you feel about that? I'm like, man, I couldn't believe they talked about me for 30 minutes. And at the end, what Joe Rogan said is that liver is great, that he eats it all the time. And then Derek said he eats it every day.
Yep.
Liver is king is not about, my name is Liver King. This is not about calling myself a king. This is about, if I can say Liver King 3 times in a 1-minute clip on Instagram, what you're always going to hear is the name is Liver King because liver is king. Mm-hmm. These guys are saying liver is king. My takeaway from that 30-minute assessment was like, thank God they promoted liver. Thank God that they did that. Because that's such a low lever for so many people to do. When you start eating liver, most people feel more energy, more drive, more determination. Their mood's getting better. And then I'm hoping that they're thinking, okay, what else is this guy talking about? Now, if you get early morning sun, now most people don't know that early morning sun sets your whole circadian rhythm, and then connecting. I mean, there's so many of these things that are free, easy, accessible to do, and will make such a massive difference in our life.
Specifically liver, though. That's what you're saying.
Raw liver. Yeah.
Not
right.
meat, not protein, specifically liver. Is that what you're saying?
Let me share a little bit about that with you. When you go and you visit with the Hadza or any of these primitive culture tribes, they don't even eat the muscle meat.
Yeah.
They go for the liver first.
Organs.
They go for the organs. And first I read this in one of these books, and I forget which book it was actually. But I read it in a book, and I'm like, really, do they do that? And then when you actually see them throw the muscle meat to the dogs and give it to the birds, it's like, holy shit, this is actually true.
Yeah.
They eat the organs, and they start with the liver and bone marrow usually. Animals in the wild do the same thing. It's enough to watch that on a documentary. I'm like, okay, that's cool, right? Yeah. I can say that as much as I want, but I got to go see this now.
What about chopped liver?
What about it?
In Judaism, all the Jews, they got the chopped liver. What am I, chopped liver? That whole thing? Is chopped liver in your diet?
Any kind of liver.
Straight up.
Yeah.
Shout out to all the Jews out there eating chopped liver.
You just made his day.
I just made my day. My mom would always, what am I, chopped liver?
Life-changing moment of the
Apparently
podcast.
that's a compliment.
Good.
Wow.
But it does lose its its purity. Obviously, when you cook it, because eating it raw, I'm not gonna front. I put a little light soy sauce with some sesame oil. I put some green onion. And I chop it up. I dice. I swallow it every day.
I put a little maple syrup on mine. Maple syrup with some salt.
You eat liver every day.
Every single day. I bought it online. I chop it up because it's frozen. I put it in those little freezer Ziploc bags. And if you go in my freezer, right now I have 100 little frozen pieces.
I love it.
I defrost it. Brian, I defrost it, chop it up. I took my thing, Patrick. I'm telling you right now, it's the energy.
Wow.
I swear. And people in the office like, yo, is Vinny on cocaine? I'm like, no, I'm on liver, bro.
We got the Liver King
I'm on liver,
and
bro.
the Liver Prince here right now.
So with all the craziness taking place, I believe future looks bright. If you believe future looks bright, get your latest Future Looks Bright hat of Valuetainment. It says Future Looks Bright here, Future Looks Bright here. We got them in white, we got them in black, we got them in red. Our black on black sold out. These are about to sell out. If you haven't ordered one yet, we had a person in Michigan, bought one, then he bought 3. Then when those 3 people weren't in the office, they had to order 58 of them because people wanted the Future Looks Bright hat, especially during times like this, because ain't nobody saying Future Looks Bright. To order your Future Looks Bright hat, click over here. And to watch the entire podcast, click here. Take care, everybody.